What's going on, guys? So as you guys already know, I have been reading, or in this case, rereading Zorro by Isabel Allende. And one thing I should make clear is that I have always been a fan of this character for as long as I can remember, from as far back as when I was only 10 years old. Because there was something about Zorro that made me want to read more about the character or to come back to the stories about this character. And it was mostly because of the fact that he represents everything that a man, or in this case, a gentleman, should be. Someone who defends the poor, somebody who defends the weak, somebody who calls out injustice whenever he sees it. And that's why Isabel Allende's novel was so important to me, because it not only shows who Zorro is as a character, but it peels back the mask in order to show what we all could be when we adapt to these principles that Don Diego de la Vega has infused himself with. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm sure you guys have seen this quote that I pretty much put out on Blue Sky, or that I pretty much shared on TikTok as well. And this is a scene from the book to where Diego was pretty much talking to his grandmother, who is White Owl, who is a Native American shaman. And she tells Diego about a cave that she and her ancestors once used in order to find their Okahue. I hope I'm saying that right, but basically when Diego heard that, he asked her, what is it? And she said it is the 5 basic virtues, which is honor, justice, respect, dignity, and courage. And he tells his grandmother, I want all those things. And she says that in order for him to attain those, he has to pass many tests without crying. And later on in the book, Diego and his milk brother Bernardo, they have to go through their own trials for their tribe in order to become men. And during his trial, Diego winded up coming across a fox. That fox acted as his spiritual guide and winded up guiding him out of danger. Because after meeting that fox, Diego winded up being struck by a rattlesnake around that time. And at that point, he was dying and was suffering from a delusion. And during that time, he saw the red eyes of the fox. And as he was going through a hallucination, he then wakes up where his grandmother was tending his wounds, and Bernardo was sitting right next to his side. To which he tells his grandmother, Grandmother, I failed the test. To which his grandmother responds by saying, no, the fox saved you. That Zorro is your totemic animal, your spiritual guide. You must cultivate its skills, its cleverness, its intelligence. Your mother is the moon, and your home, the cave. Like the fox, you will discover what cannot be seen in the dark. You will disguise yourself, and you will hide by day and act by night. And when Diego asks to do what, his grandmother responds, one day you will know. You cannot rust the Great Spirit. In the meantime, prepare, so you will be ready when that day comes. This didn't come up again until Don Diego was accepted into an order called La Justicia. And this is when Don Diego and his milk brother Bernardo winded up being in Spain. And Diego's fencing instructor reveals himself as being part of a secret order. And what La Justicia is that it's a secret order that is devoted to justice. Oh, and by the way, this all happened in between 1810 and 1812 when Don Diego arrived, and during that time, Napoleon took over Spain and installed his brother Joseph as the King of Spain. And after Diego overcame every obstacle that was set up against him, they brought him before an altar. And there were 5 symbols at that altar. And those symbols are a loaf of bread, a scale, a sword, a chalice, and finally a rose. The bread symbolizes an obligation to help the poor. The scale represents the determination to fight for justice. The sword is a representation of courage. The chalice is said to hold the elixir for compassion. And finally, the rose not only serves as a reminder that life is about sacrifice and labor, but also that life is beautiful and that it needs to be defended. And with that, the members of the society ask Diego what would his code name be from now on, and he chooses the name Zorro, remembering the red eyes of that fox that saved his life so many years ago. Yeah, there's a reason why as a Zorro fan, I always tell people that if they haven't read this book, they need to give it a chance. Not only does it give us a better and more broader understanding of the character, but it can also serve as a life lesson for some of us who grew up reading this book. I wish I could give words of encouragement, but there's no way of knowing what the next 4 years are going to be like, or the future of this country for that matter. But it further shows why stories like these are so important, because without them we would forget about the importance of courage, compassion, dignity, and respect for our fellow man. And which is why characters like Zorro, who stands up for the oppressed no matter the odds, still holds a special place for somebody who has been a fan of this character since he was 10 years old, and what inspires people like me to keep fighting for a better tomorrow. But yeah, if you haven't read Zorro by Isabel Allende, I think you should. It's definitely worth the read, and I have so many more Zorro books to read. But that's all I have to say, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.